Hey kids, I've been loading renders of my 3D figure designs from Character Creator 4 into a DreamBooth type of trained model for Stable Diffusion. Now, assuming that you are involved in this AI madness like the rest of the world or not, here's my brief explanation. There are three main divisions of AI tools. There are people who download everything from GitHub, and they run it locally with beefy graphics cards on their home computer, or very slowly with a not-so-beefy graphics card. That's kind of my boat. There are other people who do everything remotely through temporary notebooks on Google Colab. This is a bit wonky. It's like the Uber of renting time on other people's computers, and you're charged a fluctuating rental price as needed. Now, finally, there are people who are using an app or a plugin on their local device, usually a simplified interface without all the add-on features, and the heavy lifting is offloaded onto cloud servers, and typically this is a subscription. Some have limitations, but the standard on, for instance, Apple's App Store is a monthly or yearly subscription with unlimited generations. Now, for a number of reasons, I prefer the third option. I'm using a bunch of apps on my iPad. I'm generating a lot of images at each session, like easily in the hundreds. I love prompts and language, and I'm not so interested in tweaking abstract parameters. I am a nerd, but I have my limits. So unlimited subscription and a dumbed down, simplified interface for iOS makes sense to me. Now, of course, the AR marketplace is moving quickly, and software details will change in a year. I expect to be using completely different tools, but the essential concept to training a model with your own character design is more or less the same for all the tools out there. We're not going to talk geeky nuts and bolts. Instead, we're going to talk about what needs to be in your training images. Now, the basic idea is to prepare a dozen images in square ratio, showing the face of your character, and I'll probably say character and avatar 100 times interchangeably in this video. I've done this a few times. I would not call myself an expert, but I looked around for other videos, and the tutorials I found are for specific tools and settings, but not really much about the content, as in what needs to be in the training images to make this work, or more importantly, to look good. Now, information in this video is generic to our current generation of AI image generators. It's early 2023. So whether you're using a selfie app like Lensa, or the full version of Stable Diffusion, the workflow for making your own trained character model or AI avatar is broadly the same. So through trial and error, I've got some rules I'm starting to follow on my own training images. I'm going to show you some examples, things I tried, things I did wrong, and how I corrected them in a second round of training. Now, I guess my first mistakes were that I didn't really know what to expect. I assumed it was just going to be about like mapping the head from different angles. Kind of like photogrammetry creates a 3D model from a bunch of different pictures. I also assumed that the AI probably needed my help in cutting the head from a noisy background. So my first batch of renders were mostly neutral expression. I made sure to get the head from all angles. I made sure to include mostly clean portrait backgrounds. It turns out all of this was wrong. Oh, so also the app I'm using asked for up to 15 photographs. So I felt the need to give them all 15 photographs, even if I was repeating the same expression from different angles. And then I got bored making 15 of the same photographs, so I made too many with blank backgrounds, and you shouldn't use blank backgrounds at all, really. I'll talk about backgrounds at the end of this video. It is important, and I'll tell you why. But first, let me explain what goes wrong. Now, there's a concept in AI communities, they're making up their own jargon for all of this stuff. And one of the concepts is an undertrained model and an overtrained model. Now, undertraining, or an undertrained model, doesn't really look like what it's supposed to look like. It's kind of generic, a little sloppy. Maybe it's a face, but it lacks any specific details, and the AI fills in with generic facial data, and there's not enough to begin with, so it's kind of half-baked. Like, the eyes won't match, they won't line up, the facial features are the wrong size, maybe they aren't even really on the head. Now, an overtrained model starts to have too much detail. It will have a lot of random noise, like colored triangles, and facial features will jump out like they're cutouts just pasted on the head, usually having the wrong materials or deep jagged shadows. So there's a Goldilocks zone in the middle, a range where details of the face hold together and are still recognizable without being overdone. In grown-up Stable Diffusion, with all the bells and whistles, you can compensate for these settings a little with the mysterious CFG setting. I'm saying that from memory, so I might even not be saying it right. Who knows how this AI crap works. So on the AI avatar apps and the plugins, you typically get no settings, and they're probably balanced for the majority of images that get trained, meaning your art renders are being skewed against the majority of people's phone selfies. When I uploaded images with blank backgrounds, I got almost all noisy, overtrained images with harsh triangles. So here's my thinking. If blank backgrounds lead to overtrained faces, stands to reason that the corollary, an image where there just isn't enough facial information compared to the rest of the image, that's going to lead to undertrained faces. Kind of makes sense. Now, the weird thing about AI is that you can probably use prompts to get around some of these problems to a degree. If you see noisy faces, try changing your prompt. Add some details that should be there. Use flattering terms in your descriptions like gorgeous or handsome or clear skin. If you're doing a stylized art or a hand-drawn look, these flaws may not even show up because you're already altering the model enough. Whereas the photographic and cinematographic styles are going to have a lot of flaws. But again, you might get okay results just by prompting a different costume or a detailed background. So rather than compensate, it's better to give the AI what it needs. So when the AI has good training data, you know how it works, garbage in, garbage out. By my 4th or 5th attempt, I was getting, in my opinion, really good results, even with photographic styles. So the rest of this video is basically a list of tips and my own rules for my character renders. So tips for first-time training for DreamBooth or Lensa or Voy or one of the other millions of dozens of DreamBooth type apps that are going to spring up in the next month or two. Number 1, use face and head photos only. Now, I know that's not what you've seen elsewhere online, but the AI is happy to stick heads on different bodies, wearing whatever. I did a set of full body and consistent costume. I almost never see a render like 2 out of 300 renders. I saw any info that came from the 3/4 body shots, like a little piece of a costume. That's it. Maybe the colors on the costume. That's honestly about it. Really, it's about training the face. That's what's going to work. So just use face shots. Now, to establish common landmarks between all the photos, you should do, look at how my image looks right now. Shoulders, chin, eyes, brow, hairline. These are the landmarks that need to be in all of your photos. Okay? This is going to help the AI map the face and work out the face angles, the head angles, and how these faces should be posed, and more importantly, how they're attached to the body when they are rendered. Just like this, hairline to shoulders, okay? Now, if you are using, existing artwork, just crop so the face fills like more than 50% of the screen, okay? So your training images are going to be downscaled to like 512 by 512, maybe 768 if you're lucky. No matter what resolution you upload to the server, it's going to be chopped down, cropped down, or rescaled to low res 512 by 512. I know, by the time you watch this, maybe it's slightly bigger, but it's still going to be like less than you want. So crop the pics so your face, or the artwork's face, is like at least 50% of the image. You have a square screen. Fill the head with 50%. Fill the image with 50% your head, top to bottom. Okay. Now, if your pics are, 3/4 shots or, partial profiles, center the face horizontally. Don't center the head, center the face. Now, close-up selfie cameras, you know how this works if you render in 3D. Close-up cameras distort the face. You're going to have big bowed mouth, jaw, eyes, nose. You know how this works. It's like looking at a close-up distorted face with a wide-angle lens. Longer portrait lenses, like 80mm lenses, are going to be more flattering, and those are going to composite better into other artwork. So if you plan to use these rendered heads for in-painting or out-painting or for pasting into other artworks, use longer lenses, pull the camera back, and zoom. Okay? The size of the face in the final render depends on the prompts, so don't worry about that. But your camera angles and your expressions and your head tilts are all going to be recognizable from the training pics. So garbage in, garbage out. Feed the AI what you want to see. Is this character happy? Are they angry? Are they staring off into the distance? Are they talking and joking? Give your character a variety of expressions that are true to their character. Okay, so don't just dial in face morphs and visemes. The AI is not mapping 3D movement. It's not photogrammetry. It's basically going to spit out pretty much the same expressions that you put in, just variations on them, some slightly exaggerated. So you don't have to go overboard, and it's not just about head movement, okay? It's about expressions, even like subtle. Every image should have some subtle expression, because you're going to see it again and again and again. You want that variety, and you want it to be in character and usable. Now, that said, I'm going to tell you the opposite. Clothing, I think it's irrelevant. I don't think it matters at all. My training pics are from 3D renders, pretty much what you're seeing in this video. I've tried photo sets with all different clothes. I've tried photo sets with all the same clothes. I've tried photo sets with no clothes, and all things considered, no clothes is the easiest, and I'm cropping at the shoulders anyway, so it's, if you're trying to make not safe for work images, and you've done that before with AI, you know that clothing and body types can be prompted. So like I said before, I never saw my full body clothing. At most I saw a belt buckle or a similar color on completely different clothing. So this is where we get into the weird AI zone where randomization is a feature. So the AI will stylize your hair and clothing from the training photos, and also based on the prompt. Now sometimes that's what you want, because 3D hair is not always the most realistic, and maybe you're not going to spend as much time as I do trying to make your skin and lighting look perfect. I'm not saying it is perfect, but I'm trying to make it as close to perfect as I can get, so it's an impossible goal. Maybe maybe you don't want to spend that much time, and the AI will correct some things, but it won't correct everything. So if the hairstyle is important, keep it within the cropped pics, and you will see it in most renders, even if it's flawed and looks weird, doll 3D hair. But also you're going to get modified and uncontrolled styles picked by the AI, especially if the prompts suggest another time or a stylized genre. Like, in other words, if you start using a current 3D figure and you start prompting for Charles Dickens time period or Victorian, you're going to get old-fashioned hairstyles and old-fashioned clothing, okay? Now, when it comes to hairstyles, costume parts, eye color, and even the gender of your character, none of these will be permanent in your renders. You will have to gen again, and again to build up kind of a library of what you're trying to get. So there's no one perfect render. This is a cloud of renders, and you're getting the details over a series of images, and then you're going to pick from the best ones. Got it? AI has no respect for the details crucial for consistent characters. Randomization is part of the AI process. It's a feature. So even your character's gender, I know, you pick, like when you upload your training images, you pick if it's male, female, or an inanimate object. It will flip sometimes just because the AI is getting cute. There's no reason for it. It just does it. Also, your skin color. If you have like a dusky skin character like the one I'm using and blonde hair, sometimes your character is going to turn out white. Sometimes your character is going to get dark hair that usually goes with dusky skinned people. So that said, even though the AI is going to get cute and change details, you should go ahead and be very specific about the details. Like when you upload your training images, pick a gender. I know we live in the post-gender age and kids don't want to pick one. Just pick a gender for your character. The AI is randomly going to add gender cues to the face, clothing, and body and the hairstyles anyway. You can prompt it to stay closer to the original person, but you don't want to fight the AI's random contributions. That's just going to get you less good generations, that's all. Even with perfect training and perfect images, the AI is going to do some randomization, so, help it out. Make a choice. Make a choice. That said, you're going to need to pick your battles, right? There's limits to what the AI can give you, and I think the whole point of using one of these trained models is to get something based close to your model. So, don't confuse the AI, don't try to trick the AI. You'll have plenty of leeway when you're prompting later to see how much you can get away with. Anyway, there is more information in the training images than just the face. Even though I told you to focus on the face, there is more data in those images. And it's all important. All of it's important. So everything about your training images is going to become part of the idea of this trained model. So even though I'm uploading pics of my character, things like the camera angles, that's going to show up in your final generations. The depth of field, the shadows. I did a batch where my training images have the contrast set too high. It was late at night, and that contrast dial just kept tipping a little further and further, and my lighting kept getting a little more darker and darker. You know how it goes. What was I saying? Yeah, so when I started generating from that model, everything came out really high contrast, and it's really hard to remove that look. It's baked into all the skin details. Now, of course, high contrast is a look. It blends well with certain like pen and ink styles, hyper realist styles, and probably other lighting effects. So, it wasn't a lost thing. I had fun. I got interesting art ideas, but the point is you were going to create other models, and you're going to adjust, and you're going to create another model, and you're going to adjust, and you're going to create another model, and you're going to adjust. You're going to try filters, you're going to try different fonts, you're going to try different lighting. This is an ongoing tool. You're going to do it again and again. Like, don't get into this idea that you have to like make one perfect model. I mean, I guess if you're just doing like a selfie app, yeah, you just want one generic model, but in reality, change the hair, you want a new model. You change the makeup look. Day wear is one model. Night fashion wear is another model. There's probably no limits to what you are going to end up doing. All right. Now, this is the final section and my final tip, and it's kind of the most complicated. Use real backgrounds. The AI needs photos with backgrounds with lighting information. Now, clean studio backdrops, I already told you that gives you overtrained, broken faces if you have blank backgrounds. So you need real 3D or real life backgrounds with lighting information. Well, let me tell you what I did. So first I tried the no background portraits, and that was really bad. I had all broken faces. So then I was like, well, okay, so clearly there's just not enough information. I need some noise in this background. So I just, again, being lazy and trying to find shortcuts, I just made noisy backgrounds. But what I ended up with was generations where the backgrounds weren't really part of the picture. I made them extra blurry, thinking the AI would, ignore them and just find it easy to cut out the head, which is what I wanted. But no, I just got blurry nonsense backgrounds in my renders. They're pretty, and I was planning to cut out the avatar or the face, using an image removal AI. But the backgrounds didn't make any sense, and the lighting in my scene didn't really make any sense either. It was just pretty random. Nothing worked together. Nothing was realistic. And again, my model really fell apart when I tried to use photographic and cinematographic prompts. So the AI is looking at the lighting in the backgrounds, and it works out the lighting information on the face through that. This is how you'll get the AI to wrap light logically around the head, how you get nice rim lighting and edge lighting, even shadows from things like hats and visors and other things that are in the scene. If your lighting in the background matches the lighting on the figure, it will all make sense three-dimensionally. Now, I'm rendering 3D figures in iClone, so my lighting is not real at all. iClone and Character Creator, they have some lighting presets, and it's not all that. And obviously this is a matter of taste, how you light. I prefer a lot of information in my lighting, and I like dramatic shadowing. Use the 3D renderer you like. I don't know what you're gonna upload to the AI, so it's in your taste. Use the renderer I'm assuming it doesn't have to be photorealistic, but the lighting needs to make sense. It's really important. So I suggest that you put your figures, if you're using a 3D figure, suggest you put your figures in the environment you want to eventually see. You'll be able to prompt other environments, but put what you want to see in those training pics, because they're going to appear in your final renders. They're going to be a part of this concept of your AI. So what I did, I have a bunch of backdrops that I made with AI, backdrops that fit my narrative sci-fi setting. It's kind of an abstracted, hard sci-fi environment. And there's various lighting conditions in those renders. I'm adding these AI-generated backdrops into iClone, and then I'm matching my scene lights with the backdrop lighting. And this is by eye, so I'm free to be exaggerated or dramatic or colorful, but I am trying to match the lighting colors and adjusting the directions of my scene lights, both to match the environment, but also to create cinematic light effects on my subject. So yes, you've probably heard that your face should be evenly lit, blah, 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 blah. I'm telling you the opposite. Basically, light your figure the way that you want the final renders to look. Now, as you can see, my trained models are including environments which actually look more realistic. This is the final generations, and these backgrounds look better than the backgrounds that I uploaded. Like, they're actually looking like this character is inside this environment. And I think that's the goal. I think that's the ultimate goal, is to get something that works like that. All right, this is still a learning process for me. I don't pretend to have all the answers. And of course, I want to acknowledge that the results will look very different on your own artwork and with your own AI prompts. And that's really the whole point, I think, to see your own character designs translated into other art styles, and also hopefully to come up with a look that is uniquely your own by working with the AI and within its limitations in the ways that it can complement your own personal artwork. Now, I'm working on a long-term narrative project with reoccurring characters, and the vast time suck of this process is still my own art. It's designing and modeling and morphing the characters, which is really an ever ongoing process of refinement. As I see, as I see how they look in the final training data, I'm going back and adjusting their morphs and adjusting their coloring and adjusting their lighting. When you see a flaw, it's going to be reflected huge right back in your face by the AI. The upside is the AI also corrects some of your flaws. And, you got to take the good with the bad. But definitely I've gone back and retrained like all of my characters. And I think that's, if you're doing like a serious project, I think that's part of what you should expect to do is, do a round, train the data, work with that data on your prompts, and make a list of what you are not seeing, and then try to put that back into your training data if you can't prompt for it. So the good news is, the more often that I do this, it is getting easier and it is getting faster, and I am getting more consistent and expected results. So if you're creating maybe a visual novel or RPG characters or a digital comic, hopefully this will get you started. But understand, this is a process like all art. So expect to do this again and again, and refine your style and refine your process. And as you discover the problems in your training data, make the corrections and hopefully be inspired to go further. All right, I hope you learned something. Like and subscribe if this helped. And if it didn't help, like and subscribe anyway, because it supposedly helps my algorithm and blah, 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 blah. And mostly, if you are in the AI scene, stay out of this drama. Who cares about these people? Oh my God, work on your own art. Work on your own art. Work on your own art. I'll see you next time, kids. Bye.